Hi, Rashonda here. We are in Rashonda's reading room and we're reading Hagar's Daughter by Pauline Hopkins. We're on chapter 2. It's kind of long, so I think this reading might be kind of long, so let's get to it. Chapter 2. During the week preceding the memorable 20th of December, 1860, the streets of Charleston, South Carolina were filled with excited citizens who had come from all parts of the South to participate in the preparations for seceding from the Union. The hotels were full. Every available space was occupied in the homes of private citizens. Bands paraded the streets, heading processions of excited politicians who came as delegates from every section south of Mason and Dixon's line. There was shouting and singing by the populace, liberally mingled with barrelhead orations from excited orators with more zeal than worth. with more zeal than worth. There were cheers for the South and oaths for the government at Washington. I never really thought about what happens when states secede from the Union. I always think of it as a horrible thing, but they were excited. They were like, yeah, we're our own country. And they were celebrating. I've never thought about that before. And since I stopped reading, Hagar, I want to tell you the right story, wasn't? Yeah, Hagar was in the Bible. Abraham and Sarah were a couple in the Bible that God promised would be the parents of many generations, but they didn't have any kids and they were old. And so Sarah had a maid named Hagar, I say both, I'm not sure which is right, and gave her to Abraham to sleep with and have a kid by. And so they slept together and had a son, and his name was Ishmael, but he was not the son that was promised to them. And Hagar and Ishmael eventually got pushed out from Abraham and Sarah, but Ishmael became the father of well, Abraham's son Isaac became like the father of the Jewish people, and Ishmael became father of the Muslim people. So I'm not really sure who Hagar's daughter is, but I know who her son is, and I can only imagine that a daughter of Hagar would be despised and pushed out, but may also be the progenitor of a people. And while I feel like I know that Bible story really well, I also feel like I did something wrong in the telling of it. So anyway, I'll double check my Bible and make sure I did everything right. Okay, I'll keep reading. Scattered through the crowd, traders could be seen journeying to the far south with gangs of slaves chained together like helpless animals destined for the slaughterhouse. These slaves were hurriedly sent off by their master in obedience to orders from headquarters, which called for the removal of all human property from the immediate scene of the invasion so soon to come. The traders paused in their hurried journey to participate in the festivities which ushered in the birth of the glorious Confederate States of America. Okay, so they were saying, we know you got slaves, but stuff is a brewing, so get your slaves out of here. So I'm assuming so nobody will steal them and try to make them free. Wow, words cannot describe the scene. The winged heralds, by command of sovereign power, with awful ceremony and trumpet sound, proclaimed a solemn council forthwith to be held at Pandemonium, the high capital of Satan and his peers. This is a line from a poem. I'm not sure what poem, but if we're talking about Pandemonium, the high capital of Satan and his peers, I'm gonna guess it's from Milton and Paradise Lost. I can't say I'm positive, but a selection from Paradise Lost would be very appropriate right here. Among the traders, the most conspicuous was a noted man from St. Louis by the name of Walker. He was the terror of the whole Southwest among the Negro population, bond and free. For it often happened that free persons were kidnapped and sold to the far South. Uncouth, ill-bred, hard-hearted, illiterate, Walker had started in St. Louis as a dray driver and now found himself a rich man. He was a repulsive-looking person, tall, lean, and lank, with high cheekbones and face pitted with the smallpox, gray eyes with red eyebrows and sandy whiskers. Okay, he was a repulsive-looking person, tall, lean, and lank, with high cheekbones and face pitted with smallpox, gray eyes, with red eyebrows and sandy whiskers. Wow, okay. He definitely looks sinister. I would like if you can picture him in a movie now, he's like a beanpole, real high cheekbones, and a lot of kind of sinister looking people in movies have those high cheekbones and like real lean faces. And if it's an old-timey movie, they're wearing a dark top hat. He's got pocked face from smallpox. I don't know if you've seen people with like the pock marks, but they're like just indentations on their faces from having smallpox, gray eyes, which is mysterious, and red eyebrows and sandy whiskers. Like, wow, okay. So this is Walker. Walker, upon his arrival in Charleston, took up his quarters with his gang of human cattle. Oh, wow. It says cattle, not even chattel, with his gang of human cattle in a two-story flat building surrounded by a stone wall some 12 feet high, the top of which was covered with bits of glass, so there could be no passage over it without great personal injury. The rooms in this building resembled prison cells, and in the office were to be seen iron collars, hobbles, handcuffs, thumb screws, cowhides, chains, gags, and yokes. So he's got a crew of slaves with him. They're imprisoned. The prison is surrounded, it called it a flat building, it's a prison. It's surrounded by 12-foot high stone walls with glass embedded in the top, and everywhere you could see iron collars, hobbles, handcuffs, thumb screws, cowhides, chains, gags, and yokes. My gosh. Walker's servant Pompey. Okay, there are so many books with some black servant named Pompey. I bet this, I've read this, but it's been so long. I bet he's like happy looking, round face, dark skin, white teeth, white eyes. I bet that's what Pompey looks like. Walker's servant Pompey had charge of fitting the stock for the marketplace. Pompey had been so long under the instructions of the heartless speculator that he appeared perfectly indifferent to the heartrending scenes which daily confronted him. On this particular morning, Walker brought in a number of customers to view his stock, among them a noted divine who was considered deeply religious. The slaves were congregated in a backyard enclosed by the high wall before referred to. There were swings and benches which made the place very much look like a New England schoolyard. Among themselves, the Negroes talked. There was one woman who had been separated from her husband, and another woman whose looks expressed the anguish of her heart. There was old Uncle James with his whiskers off, his face clean shaven, and all his gray hairs plucked out, ready to be sold for 10 years younger than he was. And that was a very common practice to have somebody who was old and gray, shave them, grease them up, um, maybe even put boot black in their hair, do everything you can to make them look younger so you can get a better price. There was Tobias, a gentleman's body servant educated at Paris in medicine, along with his late master, sold to the speculator because of his intelligence and the temptation which the confusion of the times offered for him to attempt an escape from bondage. Wow. So this slave is basically a doctor. Mm. And they're afraid he's going to escape, so they're going to sell him mostly down south or further south. Oh my God, cried woman. Send thy angel down once more to tell me that you's gwine to keep your word, Massa Lord. Oh Lord, we's been a watching and a praying, but deliverer done forget us, cried another as she rocked her body violently back and forth. It was now 10 o'clock, and the daily examination of the stock began with the entrance of Walker and several customers. What are you wiping your eyes for? Inquired a fat, red-faced man with a white hat set on one side of his head and a cigar in his mouth, of the woman seated on the bench. 'Cause I left my mon behind. Oh, if I buy you, I'll furnish you with a better man than you left. I've got lots of young bucks on my farm, replied the man. I don't want another mon, and I tell you, massa, I never will have another mon. What's your name? Asked the man in a straw hat of a Negro standing with arms folded across his breast and leaning against the wall. Aaron, sir. How old are you? 25. Where were you raised? In Virginia, sir. How many men have owned you? 4. Do you enjoy good health? Yes, sir. Whipped much? No, sir. I suppose I didn't deserve it, sir. I must see your back so as to know how much you've been whipped before I conclude a bargain. Come on, harness yourself, old boy. Don't you hear the gentleman say he wants to examine you? Said Pompey. The speculator, meanwhile, was showing particular attention to the most noted and influential physician of Charleston. The doctor picked out a man and a woman as articles that he desired for his plantation. Let's say that again. The doctor picked out a man and a woman, so full human beings who were men and women, as articles, as things that he desired for his plantation, and Walker proceeded to examine them. Well, my boy, speak up and tell the doctor what's your name. Sam, sir, is my name. How old are you? If I live to see next corn planting, I'll be 27 or 30 or 35. I don't know which. Well, doctor, this is a green boy. Are you sound? Yes, sir. I spec I is. Open your mouth and let me see your teeth. I allers judge a nigger's age by his teeth, same as I do a hoss. Good appetite? Yes, sir. Get out on that plank and dance. Get out on that plank and dance. Oh my gosh. Get out on that plank and dance. I want to see how supple you are. I don't like to dance, massa. I's got religion. Got religion, have you? So much the better. I like to deal in the gospel, doctor. He'll suit you. Now, my gal, what's your name? I is Big Jane, sir. How old are you? Don't know, sir, but I was born at sweet potato time. Well, do you know who made you? I have heard who it was in the Bible, but I done forget its gentleman's name. Well, doctor, this is the greenest lot of niggers I've had for some time, but you may have Sam for $1,000 and Jane for 900. They are worth all I ask for them. Well, Walker, I reckon I'll take them, replied the doctor. 2 humans for $1,900. 2 whole entire humans for $1,900. I'll put the handcuffs on them and then you can pay me. Why, remarked the doctor, there comes Reverend Pinchen. Is it Mr. Pinchen as I live? Just the very man I want to see. As the reverend gentleman entered the enclosure, the trader grasped his hand, saying, Why, how do you do, Mr. Pinchen? Come down to Charleston to the convention, I suppose. Glorious time, sir, glorious. But it will be gloriouser when the new government has spread our institutions all over the conquered North. Gloriouser and gloriouser. Any camp meetings, revivals, deathbed scenes, or other things in your line going on down here? Deathbed scenes? I mean, okay, ministers do have deathbed scenes, but he just said that like, that's cool. Y'all got some deathbed scenes? All right, Walker, I'm on to you. How's religion prospering now, Mr. Pinchen? I always like to hear about religion. Well, Mr. Walker, the Lord's work is in good condition everywhere now. Mr. Walker, I've been in the gospel ministry these 13 years, and I know that the heart of man is full of sin and desperately wicked. Religion is a good thing to live by, and we'll want it when we die. And a man in your business of buying and selling slaves needs religion more than anybody else, for it makes you treat your people well. You need religion. Oh, because religion will make you treat your people well. Okay. Your people that you are buying and selling, but treating them quote unquote well. Now there's this is still Mr. Pinchen, the minister talking. Now there's Mr. Haskins. He's a slave trader like yourself. Well, I converted him. Before he got religion, he was one of the worst men to his niggers I ever saw. His heart was as hard as a stone, but religion made his heart as soft as a piece of cotton. Before I converted him, he would sell husbands from their wives and delight in doing it. But now he don't sell a man from his wife, and if he can get anyone to buy them together. How magnanimous. I tell you, sir, religion has done a wonderful work for him. So he's still buying and selling slaves, but if he can get somebody to buy the husband and wife together, then he'll sell them together. But if he can't, then he won't. Oh my gosh, what kind of religion is this that buys and sells people and says, but it's good if you're good to them, if you're soft as cotton, if you're soft as the stuff we have them pick from sun up to sundown. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading this book because we'll be here all day listening to me extemporize. I don't even know where does this chapter end? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll keep going. I know, Mr. Pynchon, that I ought to have religion and that I am a great sinner. And whenever I get with good, pious people like you and the doctor, I feel desperate wicked. I know that I would be happier with religion. And the first spare time I have, I'm going to get it. I'll go to a protracted meeting and I won't stop till I get religion. Walker then invited the because that's how you get religion. Walker then invited the gentleman to his office, and Pompey was dispatched to purchase wine and other refreshments for the guests. Within the magnificent hall of the St. Charles Hotel, a far different scene was enacted in the afternoon. The leading Southern politicians were gathered there to discuss the election of Lincoln, the sectional candidate, and to give due weight and emphasis to the future acts of the new government. There was exaltation in every movement of the delegates, and they were surrounded by the glitter of a rich and powerful assemblage in a high state of suppressed excitement. Albeit this meeting was but preliminary to the decisive acts of the following week. The vast hall, always used for dancing, was filled with tables which spread their snow-white wings to receive the glittering mass of glass, plate, and flowers. The spacious galleries were crowded to suffocation by beautiful Southern belles in festive attire. Palms and fragrant shrubs were everywhere. Garlands of flowers decorated the walls and fell, mingled with the new flaw, the stars and bars, gracefully above the seat of the chairman. So I like how Hopkins called the new Confederate flag the new flaw. Not the new flag, the new flaw. In the gallery opposite the speaker's desk, a band was stationed. Negro servants in liveries of white linen hurried noiselessly to and fro. The delegates filed into their places at table to the crashing strains of Dixie. Someone raised the new flag aloft and waved it furiously. The whole assembly rose en masse and cheered vociferously, and the ladies waved their handkerchiefs. Mirth and hilarity reigned. The first attention of the diners was given to the good things before them. After cigars were served, the music stopped and the business of the day began in earnest. There was the chairman, Honorable Robert Toombs of Georgia. There was John C. Breckinridge of Kentucky, Stephen A. Douglas, Alexander H. Stephens, and Jefferson Davis. Silence, was the cry as Honorable Robert Toombs, the chairman, arose. Fellow delegates and fellow citizens, I find myself in a most remarkable situation, and I feel that every Southern gentleman sympathizes with me. Here am I, chairman of a meeting of the most loyal, high-spirited, and patriotic body of men and their guests and friends that ever assembled to discuss the rights of humanity and Christian progress, and yet unable to propose a single toast with which we have been wont to sanction such a meeting as this. So he's like, here I am in the midst of all of you proud, patriotic, loyal, high-spirited Southerners who are denizens of humanity and Christian progress, yet I can't propose a single toast with which we have been wont to sanction such a meeting as this. With grief that consumes my soul, I am compelled to bury in the silence of mortification, contempt, and detestation the name of the government at Washington. Wow, he is burying the name of the US government with mortification, contempt, and detestation. He continues. I can only counsel you, friends, to listen to no vain babbling, to no treacherous jargon about overt acts. They have already been committed. Defend yourselves. The enemy is at your door. Wait not to meet him at the hearthstone. Meet him at the doorsill and rive him from the temple of liberty, or pull down its pillars and involve him in a common ruin. Never permit this federal government to pass into the traitorous hands of the Black Republican Party. Wow. Okay, so he's saying the Northerners are at our door. We don't need to wait. We need to fight back, and calling the Republican Party black. Probably black as in evil, but also black as in they are loving the black people. Wow, his speech continues. My language may appear strong, but it is mild when we consider the attempting being made to wrest from us the exclusive power of making laws for our own community. So this is hearkening the states' rights idea of the secession from the Union. The repose of our homes, the honor of our color, the prosperity of the South demand that we resist innovation. No innovating for us. This is how we've always done it. This is how we're going to do it. I rejoice to see around me fellow laborers worthy to lead in the glorious cause of resisting oppression and defending our ancient privileges, which have been set by an almighty hand. We denounce once and for all the practices proposed by crazy enthusiasts, seconded by designing knaves, and destined to be executed by demons in human form. Wow, calling Northerners demons in human form? That's deep. We shall conquer in this pending struggle. We will subdue the North and call the roll of our slaves beneath the very shadow of Bunker Hill. Wow, so Bunker Hill, a famous place of battle in the Revolutionary War, although I think I later learned it was actually called Breeds Hill. It is a consummation devoutly to be wished. Wow. And now I call upon all true patriots in token of their faith to drink deep of one deserving their fealty, the guardian and the savior of the South, Jefferson Davis. Woo! I'm sure the crowd went wild. Yes, that is actually what the next line says. Vociferous cheers broke forth and shook the building. The 19th century way of saying the crowd went wild. The crowd surrounding the hotel took it up, and the name Davis, Davis, Davis was repeated again and again. He arose in his seat and bowed profoundly. The band played See the Conquering Hero Comes. A lady in the gallery back of him skillfully dropped a crown of laurel upon his head. Wow, like he just won the Olympics. The crowd went mad. They tore the decorations from the walls and pelted their laurel crowned hero until he would gladly have had them cease. But such is fame. Okay, so then they started a riot. They're like, Davis, Davis. Then they start tearing the place up. They're tearing the draperies down and they're throwing stuff at the person that they are lauding. Wow. Okay, when the cheers had somewhat subsided, Mr. Davis said, I must acknowledge, my fellow citizens, the truth of the remarks just made by our illustrious friend, Senator Toombs. I was never more satisfied with regard to the future history. The future history. What a juxtaposition. I was never more satisfied with regard to the future history of our country than I am at present. I believe in state rights, slavery, and the Confederacy that we are about to inaugurate. The principle of slavery is in itself right and does not depend upon difference of complexion. Oh, come on. You, as a white man, are not trying to be a slave. Let's read that again, because I don't know how anybody can make their mouth say that. The principle of slavery is in itself right and does not depend upon difference of complexion. Make the laboring man the slave of one man instead of the slave of society, and he would be far better off. Oh my gosh, he's saying it's better to be a slave to a single person than a slave to society or a slave to the system, and thus justifying slavery. Wow. I'm sorry. I'm looking to see how many pages I have left. It's like 4 or so. Slavery, black or white, is necessary. Nature has made the weak in mind or body for slaves. Okay, so he's saying everybody who's a slave is weak in mind or body. How can you say that? We just had a litany of slaves. One was a doctor. Others are strong workers. They are strong in both mind and body. You can't be a slave and be weak in body for sure. The work is way too hard. All of it. If you're a house slave, a field slave, whatever, that is hard work. And weak in mind? If you're weak in mind, slavery would break you and snap you. Nature has made the weak in mind or body for slaves, please. In 5 days, your delegates from all the loyal Southern states will meet here in convention. I feel the necessity that every eye be fixed upon the course which will be adopted by this assembly of patriots. You know our plans. South Carolina will lead the march of the gallant band who will give us the liberty we crave. We are all united in will and views and therefore powerful. I see me and my colleagues, men to whom I see before me in my colleagues, men to whom the tranquility of our government may be safely confided. Men devoted and zealous in their interests, senators and representatives who have managed everything for our aid and comfort. Few of the vessels of the Navy are available at home. The Army is scattered on the western frontier, while all the trained officers of the Army are with us. Within our limits, we have control of the entire government property: mints, custom houses, post office, dockyards, revenue cutters, arsenals, and forts. The national finances have been levied upon to fill our treasury by our faithful Southern members of the late cabinet. Yes, friends, all is ready. Every preparation is made for a brief and successful fight for that supremacy in the government of this nation, which is our birthright. Yes, friends, all is ready. Every preparation is made for a brief and successful fight for that supremacy in the government of this nation, which is our birthright. Why is it their birthright? And then there's a parenthetical note: tremendous applause. The crowd went wild again. By the election just thrust upon us by the Republican Party, the Constitution is violated. And were we not strong to sustain our rights, we should soon find ourselves driven to prison at the point of the bayonet. Cries of never, never. Ousted from the Council of State, oblivion everywhere, and nothing remaining but ourselves to represent truth and justice. We believe that our ideas are the desires of the majority of the people, and the people represent the supreme and sovereign power of right. Hear, hear, cheers. For Abraham Lincoln, hisses. Nothing is inviolate, nothing sacred. He menaces in his election our ancient ideas and privileges. How ancient are your ideas and privileges? The country is like what, 100 years old? Not even that. I mean, we were founded upon ancient ideas and privileges in ways, but this is making it sound like this has been our way in the South for thousands of years. I mean, it had been the way in the South since what, 1619? So, I mean, we are at over 200 years, but we're not even at 100 years as a country. This is crazy to me. All right, he continues, still Jefferson Davis. The danger grows greater. Let us arise in our strength and meet it more than halfway. Are you ready, men? We are ready, came in a roar like unto the waters of the mighty Niagara. What shall we do? No half measures. Let it be a deed of grandeur. It shall be done, came in another mighty chorus. In such a crisis, there must be no vacuum. There must be a well-established government before the people. You, citizens, shall take up arms, and we will solicit foreign reinforcements. We will rise up before this rail-splitting ignoramus, a terrible power. Wow. You just called Lincoln a rail-splitting ignoramus. We will rise up before this rail-splitting ignoramus, a terrible power. We will overwhelm this miserable apology for a gentleman and a statesman as a terrible revolutionary power. Do you accept my proposition? Yes, yes, came as a unanimous shout from the soul of the vast assembly. Okay, so this is hilarious to me, the way he's describing Lincoln, a rail-splitting ignoramus, the miserable apology for a gentleman and a statesman, and a terrible revolutionary power. How can anybody in the US be against a revolutionary power? That's how we came to be a country. We revolted. Now, should have the British owned the country and like all of the countries and British colonialism? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is revolution is what made our country exist. And now he's saying, oh, this terrible revolutionary power. Do we like revolution or do we not? I mean, there's a place, right? I'm not saying revolution is always the thing to do, but what was revolutionary was them. And he's flipping that and calling Lincoln the revolutionary, and a terrible one at that. Okay. Jefferson Davis continues. Our northern friends make a great talk about free society. We sicken of the name. What is it but a conglomeration of greasy mechanics, filthy operatives, small-fisted farmers, and moonstruck abolitionists? Tell me what you really think. All the northern states, and particularly the New England states, are devoid of society fitted for well-bred gentlemen. The prevailing class one meets with is that of mechanics struggling to be genteel, and farmers who do their own drudgery, and yet who are hardly fit for association with a gentleman's slave. So he's mad at northerners because they work. If you were a true Southern gentleman, you wouldn't have to work. You would have slaves for that. But since you're not worthy of my time. Wow. We have settled this matter in the minds of the people of the South by long years of practice and observation. And hang on, let's also say everybody in the South was not a Southern gentleman. There were poor whites struggling to get along, just like there were in the North. What in the world? Okay, we have settled this matter in the minds of the people of the South by long years of practice and observation. And I believe that when our principles shall have been triumphantly established over the entire country, North, South, West, a long age of peace and prosperity will ensue for the entire country. Under our jurisdiction, wise laws shall be passed for the benefit of the supreme and subordinate interests of our communities. And when we have settled all these vexed questions, I see a season of calm and fruitful prosperity in which our children's children may enjoy their lives without a thought of fear or apprehension of change. What a speech! Then the band played. There was more cheering and waving of handkerchiefs, in the midst of which John C. Breckinridge arose and gracefully proposed the health of the first president of the Confederate States of America. It was drunk by every man standing. Other speakers followed, and the most intemperate sentiments were voiced by the zealots in their great cause. The vast crowd went wild with enthusiasm. It literally says the crowd went wild. Yes. The vast crowd went wild with enthusiasm. St. Clair Ensign, one of the most trusted delegates, and the slave trader Walker sat side by side at the table, and in the excitement of the moment, all the prejudices of the Maryland aristocrat toward the vile dealer in human flesh were forgotten. So this St. Clair Ensign apparently didn't like Walker, thought he was better than him or whatever, but in the moment, all of that was forgotten. The convention had now passed the bounds of all calmness. Many of the men stood on chairs, gesticulating wildly, each trying to be heard above his neighbor. In vain, the chair rapped for order. Pandemonium reigned. At one end of the long table, two men were locked in deadly embrace, each struggling to enforce his views upon the other by brute strength. Oh my gosh. So people are standing in chairs, they're waving their arms, there's pandemonium, people are fighting each other, maybe to the death. It said they're locked in deadly embrace. My gosh. One man had swept the dishes aside and was standing upon the table, demanding clamorously to be heard. And above all, the band still crashed its brazen notes of triumph in the familiar strains of Dixie. Oh my gosh. The people are going crazy. There's a riot going on. They're pulling stuff down off of the walls. People have swept all of the dishes off of the table. People are standing on tables. People are fighting. And you hear in the background the band, oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton. All times there are not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. What a scene. All right, a Negro boy handed a letter to Mr. Ensign. He turned it over in his hand, curiously examining the postmark. When did this come, Cato? The Negro boy named Cato. We get that a lot too. More in a month, massa, was the reply. Mr. Ensign tore open the envelope and glanced over its contents with a frowning face. Bad news, ventured Walker with unusual familiarity. The worst possible for me. My brother is married and announces the birth of a daughter. That doesn't sound like bad news. Well, daughters are born every day. I don't see how that can hurt you. It happens in this case, however, that this particular daughter will inherit the Ensign fortune, returned Ensign with a short laugh. Hang on, there's a daughter who was born who is going to inherit a family fortune? I am intrigued. Tell me more. All right. Walker gave a long, low whistle. Who was your brother's wife? Any money? Clark Sargent's daughter. Money enough on both sides, but the trouble is, it will never be mine. Another sharp, bitter laugh. Sargent, said Walker musingly. Pears to me I've had business with a gentleman of the same name years ago in St. Louis. However, it can't be the same one because this man hadn't any children. Leastways, I never heard on any. Perhaps it is the same man. Clark Sargent was from St. Louis, moved to Baltimore when the little girl was 5 years old. Mr. and Mrs. Sargent are dead. Okay, so we are clearly getting some secret identity, unknown identity, disguised identity, something set up here with Clark Sargent, his wife, their daughter. Let's keep reading. Perhaps it is the same man. Clark Sargent was from St. Louis, moved to Baltimore when the little girl was 5 years old. Mr. and Mrs. Sargent are dead. Same man, same man. Said Walker, scratching the flesh beneath his sandy whiskers meditatively as he gazed at the ceiling. Both dead, eh? Come to think of it, I might be mistaken about the little gal. Has she got black hair and eyes and cream-colored skin? And has she grown up to be an all-fired, pesky fine woman? Okay, let's go to the black hair and the cream-colored skin. In novels of this time period, one must pay attention to all color cues. If you've got a woman with black hair and cream colored skin and is very attractive, chances are really good you're talking about a mulatto woman, a woman who is biracial, um, often with a black mother and a white father, or maybe, a black parent way down the line. But we need to be paying close attention to this, plus with the setup of mistaken identity. All right, has she got black hair and eyes and a cream colored skin? And has she grown up to be an all fired, pesky fine woman? Can't say, replied Ensign with a yawn as he rose to his feet. I've never had the pleasure of meeting my sister in law. When you going up to Baltimore? Asked Walker. Next week on the Planter. Think I'll take a trip up with you. You don't mind my calling with you on your brother's family, do you, Mr. Ensign? I would admire to introduce myself to Clark Sargent's little gal. She might not remember me at first, but I reckon I could bring back recollections of me to her mind if it's just the same to you, Mr. Ensign. Oh no, I feel a Machiavellian scheme coming on. Oh, be hanged to you. Go where you please. Go to the devil, replied Ensign as he swung down the hall and elbowed his way out. No need of going to the devil when he's right side of you, Mr. Ensign, muttered Walker as he watched the young man out of sight. You damned aristocrats carry things with a high hand. I'll be glad to take a reef in your sails, and I'll do it too, or my name's not Walker. Woo! Well, we had all the doings right there with chapter 2. My goodness. All right, that is chapter 2 of Pauline Hopkins, Hagar's Daughter. I'm Rashonda Cade, and this is Rashonda's Reading Room.